Hello and welcome to National Park Wild. I'm Eric, and thank you for 400 subscribers. We just recently hit 350, so I'm very happy that we got to 400 so soon. I'm hoping we can get to 500 by the end of February. Now this ranking, it's not all national parks, but I'm going to specifically talk about the desert. I love mountains, and forests and beaches are nice too, but the desert is probably one of the most consistent types of national park and has some of the best parks in the entire chain. So I'm going to rank 16 national parks that I classify as desert parks. This will only be parks taken from the main 63, no monuments or historic sites or anything like that. And I should also point out, some parks that you may think would be desert that are not. I will not be doing Black Canyon of the Gunnison in Colorado. And essentially what I have in this list is New Mexico, some Southern California, Arizona, Texas, Utah, 2 Southern Colorado parks. And I believe that's pretty much it. With that out of the way, let's get to the list. But first of all, these first 3 are really unfair because I didn't go to them very much. But number 16 is Capitol Reef. I saw very little of this park, so please don't think I believe it is the worst. It definitely is not the worst, I'm sure. It just happens to be at the bottom because I was only going here for a few hours in between Arches and Bryce Canyon. What I saw was nice, but nothing mind-blowing because I barely went in. Number 15 is Guadalupe Mountains. Another one I can't give the most fair review of, but this probably is number 16 out of 16 in my opinion if I did get a full look at it compared to the others. It's just not all that impressive to me compared to the others. It has fine mountain scenery and an interesting history, and if you're into long hikes, you'll love this one. The hikes I did were fine, but I think this park is just decent overall. Number 14 is White Sands. Beautiful landscapes with great mountains behind the incredible white dunes. However, I didn't even actually go into this park, it was closed when I went, and I'm essentially basing this off of a few views I got from the side of the road. Going back it would rank higher, but for now it's not really that high because I didn't see much of it. Number 13, Mesa Verde. In Colorado, this is the first one I can really fairly rank. This one is definitely underrated. A lot of people don't like it, and I understand that it's mainly about the cultural and historical aspects, but there's some nice scenery here too. I enjoyed some hikes, some of the canyons are very interesting. It's kind of cool how this is essentially one high elevated area surrounded by just flat land. And the history itself is also quite interesting. This is the lowest of the ones that I had full experiences in, but it is still definitely a good park that's definitely worth visiting for more than just the cliff dwellings. Number 12, Petrified Forest. A park that could rank a whole lot higher, if not for some very strange policies of this park. First of all, the scenery is stunning. Painted Desert is vast and impressive. Blue Mesa is a really cool, colorful site that I absolutely loved. And the Petrified Wood is actually much cooler than you would think at first. I enjoy all of these different areas of the park. And though a lot of the park is just kind of grass, and honestly this one is barely a desert park, it is stunning. But this park is held back by the fact that it closes around sunset most days, and when I went, it closed at 5 p.m. So you are really limited on what you can experience here. It's still a very beautiful park though, but if not for that rule, this could easily be top 10. Number 11, Joshua Tree. Joshua Tree is a park that has gotten a lot of crowds, popularity, and love recently. And while I definitely enjoy the park and don't think it was ever too crowded that it hurt the experience, this park is not the most impressive desert scenery. It's very small scale, I think. There's a few large boulders, but you don't have a ton of mountains or vast sand dunes or super impressive landscapes overall. But that does not mean this is not a great park. The number of Joshua trees here is staggering, and I like that a lot. Abundance of interesting plants that you don't normally see is cool to me. Keys View is a very fascinating viewpoint. There are some large mountains outside of the park you can see in the background. And there are some great hikes, like the incredibly underrated Barker Dam, and some impressive bird life. This park is only held back by the fact that the ones above it all have either much more impressive scenery or much better experiences for me. So this park honestly might get a little too much hype as it is becoming incredibly popular, but it is still a good park. Number 10 is Saguaro. I'm really fighting not saying Saguaro the whole time, because I'm still getting used to that. But the saguaro cacti here, there's probably even more of them than there are Joshua trees, at least based on what you can see. And yes, the scenery here is probably even lower than 10th place. The mountains are fine, but they're not really that high above Guadalupe. And I think the cacti, while cool, aren't the most amazing scenery you'll find in a desert. But this park ranks in the 10th spot because of the wildlife. I hear some do not see a whole lot of wildlife here, but you have to be strategic and you really should go early, late in this park and really look for some incredible animals. While here, I saw many lizards, coyotes, rabbits, great horned owls, hawks, and a ton of other cool animals. The east and west unit being separated does not bother me. I personally think the west unit was better, as even though I saw more wildlife in the east unit, I found the scenery and cacti of the west unit to be a bit more interesting. Also, make sure you stay for sunset and stargazing, as it's some of the best of any park I've experienced. Number 9, Carlsbad Caverns. I have not been to this one in quite a while, but I still really enjoyed it. It was not the first cave I ever saw. If it was, I think this could actually rank in the top 4 right now. But it's one that, while definitely the best cave I've ever seen, since I had seen others before, I kind of knew what to expect scenery-wise. Obviously, this blows other caves in the US out of the water, in my opinion. I think the massive rooms, like the big room, and the hikes you can take through them are incredible. And there is some decent above-ground scenery. However, the above-ground scenery is probably just about at Guadalupe Mountains level, so this park is really held up by the caves, and those caves are stunning, so they definitely earned a decent spot on this list. It pains me to put this at 9, but it's against stiff competition. Number 8, Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado. What an incredible park this is. It's the least desert of the parks, I think, here, because even though there are massive sand dunes, there's also snow-covered mountains in this park. So this one was a bit of a stretch to put in the desert thing, but I thought I just really wanted to talk about this one again, because it is very underrated. High Dune, a hike to one of the tallest dunes in the park, is stunning, and once you're at the top, you get one of the most amazing views in all of Colorado, I think, with fantastic sand dunes behind incredible mountains and some forests around that. I love the hikes, I love the scenery. The only thing holding this one back is that I heard about a lot of wildlife when I went here, but I didn't see a whole lot. That said, you don't need wildlife to be a great park, and this is definitely a great park. Number 7 is Arches. The jump from 8 to 7 is probably the biggest in this list, probably at least 10 spots in my rankings, because Arches is so good. A lot of people would probably put this in their top 3 desert parks. I do think it gets a little too much hype in that regard, as the scenery, while very good, just can't match the 6 parks I put above it. But this park is amazing, with Delicate Arch honestly really living up to the hype. In terms of size, it's not technically a mountain or anything, but as far as arches go, it just looks so cool, especially since you can walk right up to it. You also have a lot of other great hikes, Landscape Arch, Double Arch, there's a lot of small ones. I think if you have young children, this is one of the best parks you can ever go to. I also think the wildlife here is actually surprisingly good, as I see deer every time I go here. The large, interesting monoliths and other unique features are very cool for sure. I think this park, similar to Joshua Tree, has a bit smaller scale scenery, while I am very into grand, vast landscapes. And I think the 6 above it do have more grand landscapes overall. But Arches definitely deserves a lot of the credit it gets, and it is easily a top 20 park I've ever been to, which is quite an honor out of 61. Number 6 is Canyonlands, the neighbor of Arches. This one's slightly edged out after my last visit. I went to Island in the Sky first and thought that the scenery was really cool. I didn't remember being super impressed the first time I went, but this time, it wasn't too far off from, Grand Canyon. I think it's not the most massive, but it does go on for a very long distance, expansive views, even if it's not huge jutting rocks like Grand Canyon. Mesa Arch is a very picturesque view for sure. And then you have the Needles. That is the region that really earns this spot, because the Needles is fantastic. It feels straight out of Zion. Unique colors, incredible shapes. I probably took 1,000 pictures on my one hike in the Needles. Chesler Park View is one of the best hikes in any national park, and I highly recommend you go to Needles and Canyonlands, as I truly feel, even if you enjoy Island in the Sky, you have not experienced Canyonlands in full until you've seen below the canyon. Similar to how going into the Grand Canyon is very important to do the best experience, it is one of the most important parts of Canyonlands. The Needles is stunning. If you haven't gone yet and still love the park, trust me, you'll love it even more if you do that. On to the top 5. Number 5 is Bryce Canyon. Bryce Canyon is a very good park. I think the hikes into the amphitheater, not really a canyon, are quite impressive. The hoodoos are tall, quirky, beautiful colors. I went in a winter time, so the snow on the canyon was really cool. I enjoyed going into the canyon. I enjoyed being around the canyon. I wasn't here for a super long time, and this park just edges out Canyonlands, honestly. The main reason is that I do think it's a bit more massive in its rock features, even if it's not quite as expansive. I can totally see you putting Arches and Canyonlands above Bryce, but I love Bryce too much. Number 4 is Death Valley. This is, known for the hottest place on Earth. That's really why people know Death Valley. Badwater Basin is cool, but honestly, the other stuff at Death Valley is so cool, I think Badwater Basin's an afterthought. Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes, Zabriskie Point, Golden Canyon, Harmony Borax Works. These are just a few of the absolutely stunning areas of Death Valley that I think were even cooler than Badwater Basin. The sand dunes are really cool. The mountains are fantastic. Driving here is great. The wildlife is shockingly abundant. The Badland area and the other salt flats is really cool. The history behind Death Valley is amazing. And there's so much to do here. It's one of the most diverse parks I've ever been to. And it easily earned the top 4 spot. However, the top 3 are absolute amazing parks. And I think all of them are in my top 10 parks I've ever been to. So it was hard to rank them. But number 3 is Grand Canyon National Park. For some, this is definitely the easy number 1. It is probably the most famous park in the world. It is just amazing. It lives up to all of that hype. The first time I went here was my first national park visit. I was young. I didn't really care that much about nature all that much when I first went. I thought it was fine. But once I got here when I was older and went into the canyon and truly understood it, it is easily one of the best parks. It has stunning scenery. The canyon itself is probably a top 5 most beautiful sight in any national park. It's unbelievable. Hiking into it is fantastic. I saw California condor when I went, which is definitely a special experience. There's not a whole lot else that needs to be said. It's a park many agree is one of the best. My only nitpick is that it does feel that it is becoming a little too civilized, if you understand what I mean. There are a lot of hotels lining the canyon, and honestly, I can see why some people might be put off by that, but it does not take away from the beauty of the canyon, and therefore, it barely bothers me at all. Number 2 is Zion. Zion is another one that some would easily put at number 1, and others would say is becoming too crowded. The people who complain about the Zion crowds, I understand. They can get busy. But, unless you are hiking the Narrows, I don't think it's too difficult to plan around that. You can definitely just go in a different time of year that is less crowded, and I really think you can have an amazing experience. Especially since you can be just outside of Zion and be blown away by the scenery to the same extent as Grand Canyon. What makes this park special is that you start at the bottom of the canyon, and in other hikes, you work your way up. Angel's Landing is one of my favorite hikes of all time, and I do feel that the canyon is honestly more beautiful than Grand Canyon. The hikes are even better. The wildlife is more abundant. I just think this is definitely one of the absolute best national parks. However, it could not beat Big Bend National Park as number 1. A very strange pick, I'm sure, for many of you. You're wondering how on earth I could put Zion, Grand Canyon, Arches, Bryce Canyon, Canyonlands, Death Valley, even Joshua Tree below Big Bend. This park was special to me. I went in expecting a very good experience, but I just could not believe some of the things I saw here. One special thing about this park is it has no crowds. I don't mind crowds in the park, but the less crowds, the better, of course. So it's an added bonus, and that made the Lost Mine Trail a special experience. This trail, we were the only people on it for the entire morning. Incredible views, sunrise, and a black bear. I also got to see incredible canyons, 2 different ones to be exact, with rivers of different colors. We saw stunning deserts, unique wildlife including coyotes, and deer, and rabbits, and many birds. So many unique features that feel like the most incredible roadside attractions but natural, so you just love stopping at them. Unique canyons that look downward, white in color, twin peaks known as the Mule Ears. I feel that the Chisos Mountains are right up there with Grand Canyon and Zion Canyon in terms of scenery. The wildlife, the stargazing, the scenic drives, and the hiking are all above Grand Canyon and Zion in my opinion. This is the most underrated national park, partially because very few go here. I understand this one is very tough to get to, but I think it is more than worth the trip. However, it's also underrated because very few people really talk about this one even if they have been there. Many don't think it's all that great, but believe me, Big Bend has some of the most incredible scenery. I understand it is a matter of taste, but I think if you go here, because this park has so much to do and is one of the most diverse in the entire system, I think you will find something that blows you away if you go here. And that is the entire ranking. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this unique ranking. Tell me about your favorite desert parks down below. Subscribe to the channel for more content. I will see you next time.